In a previous video, I showcased what I thought of at the time as the most realistic Starship recreation ever developed, that being the Starship Expansion Project mod for KSP. It has come to my attention, however, that it might have some competition. I am referring, of course, to the game StarbaseSim by Ashtarak. Now, I've heard of this game for a while now, and every once in a while I get a comment from someone recommending I try it, but for whatever reason, I've never got around to playing it. However, a couple days ago, I was very graciously provided with a free copy of StarbaseSim for me to make a video with. And, well, here we are. Before we get started, I do just want to say that the fact that I was given a free copy of the game is not going to change in any way how I present my feelings towards this game. There are some things I think it does well, and as you will no doubt see in the video, some things I think that can be improved on. And last thing before we start, there is a link in the description if you do want to check the game out yourself. It's about $14 US. The link isn't an affiliate link in any way, so I'm not making money on it or anything like that. If you choose to click it, it's there in case you're curious. So let's get started, shall we? Alrighty, here we are inside of StarbaseSim and at the build site more specifically. So what I thought we'd do for today's video is grab this little SPMT in front of us, take it under the booster, and deliver our booster out to the launch site. Then we will also bring a ship out. We will use the lovely chopsticks, which are modeled and functional, which is pretty cool. We're going to grab the booster, put it on the pad, grab the ship, put it on the booster, and then launch. So that is the plan, and I think doing all that will kind of give a pretty good idea of the fundamentals of this game. It's not there's some features that I'm not going to cover, like Massey's, for example, is modeled. We're not going to drive all the way out to the Massey's test site. Not necessary, at least for this video. Maybe if you guys want to see more StarbaseSim in the future. But for today's video, we're just going to grab our SPMT, get our little booster on board, and you can see we're already driving on out to the road. Now, this part is kind of funny for me to watch backwards because I was kind of really pushing the speed, and I'm still getting used to this game too. So the combination of going fast and not totally knowing what I'm doing led to a little bit of a wobbly drive out to the launch pad, and when it's time-lapsed, as you can see now, yeah, definitely a little bit, a little funny. You can see me kind of wobbling back and forth. That, this were real life, I'd probably be getting pulled over and getting run through some standardized field sobriety tests at this point. But we're making our way out here nonetheless with our booster. This thing is modeled 1-to-1 scale, so it's a little bit more than a mile drive out with the SPMT. Really puts into perspective how these real people have to, and they're not obviously going nearly this fast. The dude has to stand there, walk with the remote, and make sure no boosters are falling off here. And as we come into the final turn, it's really steep, and I get a little aggressive with it, and oh boy golly, what's going on here? That's no good. That is no good at all. We are tipping. God. I would say that's suboptimal. I think we might want to give that another try. So, I'm not going to do the whole roll through again, the whole roll out, just the end. And you can see already on attempt number 2, we are much more stable. I'm making much smaller inputs in the SPMT, and we're making our way out to the launch pad. And here's the tricky bit again with the tight turn. Oh golly, look at that, we made it. And now it's pretty easy. I was going to the pad A, not going to the new tower, which isn't completed yet in real life or in the game. And we're gonna drive past the tank farm, and a little tight there. And now we're gonna do the most gosh darn annoying thing in the history of ever, which is getting the booster lined up with the chopsticks. This took this whole filming process. This was the worst part, was getting this darn thing aligned correctly. And we're gonna just crossfade through all that misery and possible reloads and spawns and blah blah blah. But anyway, we have our fully functional Mechazilla chopsticks, which we're gonna line with little nubby pin things on the side of the booster. We're then gonna close them up, line them up, and we're gonna see once we get the nubs to basically contact the landing rail. We're gonna release the clamps on the transport stand, which is now gonna have the booster completely suspended by the sticks, and then we're gonna use the pushers, which are going to now center the booster on the chopsticks. And I probably should have lifted the sticks before I did that, but no, we're good. We're improvising here. And now that we have them at the correct location, we can bring the sticks all the way up, and then we're going to get ready to rotate them over. I would say this is really the best part of the game, in my opinion. Is really honestly, I found driving the SPMTs to be pretty fun, trying to keep it on the road, and also the stacking. The Mechazilla and this whole system works quite well, actually. Quite a bit better. I don't think I've ever gotten a successful stacking of a super heavy booster and a ship on top of it in KSP without everything exploding. So without the Kraken showing up. So, and in this game, it kind of does just work. And actually, if you're familiar with the KSP mod, Starship expansion project on KSP, you will find a lot of the controls quite intuitive, because a lot of the people who worked on the mod are also listed as some of the contributors to this game. So you might feel some similarities in how they function as I kind of bonk into the booster with my chopsticks as I get ready to lift the ship up. And boy, oh boy, I'm glad those clamp arms on the OLM are like way stronger in the game than they are in real life, because yeah, that if we just smacked the booster in real life, that thing would be tumbling, tipping, and exploding off on the side there. I obviously decided not to show the whole rollout for the ship because I felt that'd be kind of redundant. So we're skipping obviously straight to the stacking as we go ahead and lift this bad boy up. Obviously you can tell this is still the old Block 1 design of the ship. I'm sure at some point a Block 2 update will come, but alas, it has not arrived yet. And you'll hear in a few seconds some weird clicky sounds. That would be me taking screenshots of the lift because I think it looks very cool. It just sounds a little weird in the time lapse. But what can you do as we finish lifting up the lovely ship onto our booster? And yeah, there they are. This is where the game is really at its best, like I said. You'll see a little bit later on, the parts of the game that need refining are definitely the flight aspect of it, but we'll cross that bridge when we can get to it, which we are definitely about to get to. But we are going to swivel our sticks over, and we're going to get ready to plonk the ship down onto the booster, and we're going to want to line up those the very small alignment pins you can see on the booster, the little things that kind of stick up. They kind of slot into little holes in the ship, and it takes a little bit of in and out and kind of up and down to kind of get it all lined up, but eventually we get it all set up correctly, and that is our booster and ship lined up correctly. And I'm gonna have to start talking real quick for this next part because a lot of stuff starts happening. So we're loading now the ship and the booster with propellant. There is some sort of tank farm modeling and stuff like that, but we're not covering every feature. There's a decent amount of content in this game, so this is just a pretty high level overview of some of the main features of the game. So right now what I'm doing is, I'm going to need to start going quick here, because we're starting to launch, is I've preset the roll, and you can see we have a little bit of a rock tornado going. That's because I didn't activate the deluge, and you know what, rock tornadoes are cool, so that's what we get instead. So you can see the 4 up, down, left, right buttons in the kind of bottom left of the UI there. Those are your controls, and the controls of this game function a lot more like Simple Rockets 2 or whatever it's called now. I know it has a new name than KSP. It's like Neptune, Horizon, something. I'm getting that totally wrong. Anyway, Juno. It's Juno, yeah. Function more like that. So what we're doing is we're pressing the arrows to control where the booster goes, up, down, left, right, and then we have the controller active in green, which is actually making the inputs. So we just use the arrows to say where we would like the booster to go, and then basically the, in quotes, autopilot will take us to that orientation. And here we are getting up to hot staging. This is also really cool, is we hit the hot stage button, you'll see it actually staggers, the engines stagger down and the ship engines automatically light. Right now inputting a full aft on the booster to get it to turn around. There it goes, to do a simulated boost back burn, and now we'll go back to the ship, and you can see the booster turning around and heading back to the launch pad for its catch. Unfortunately, the catching, if you look around on YouTube, there are videos of people catching boosters with in this game. There is kind of the fundamental problem is that there isn't like targeting. Like in the trajectories mod in KSP, you can see where your booster is going to end up based on its current trajectory. That doesn't quite exist yet in this game, so it's basically impossible to get an accurate boost back burn and an accurate you know, you get yourself on the right spot to do a landing burn. So at least manually, there may be some scripts that can kind of make stuff work. But yeah, it just doesn't quite work. I guess that's the easiest way of saying it. And speaking of things that don't quite work, kind of a strange quirk of this game is the world is flat, flat Earth confirmed, right? So like getting into orbit isn't like a thing. So you can see here we're going essentially orbital velocity, a little bit below it, but when I cut the engines, and essentially we're just immediately falling back to Earth, and there's not quite, you know, orbit. Everything's basically just a ballistic, you know, you go up in an arc and you come back down in that arc. That's why we basically instantly, as soon as you cut our engines, started falling back down to Earth. But here we are doing our re-entry. Speaking of, you know, as Doug Demir would say, quirks and features, re-entry, because of the way the physics are and the way the Earth and the lack of orbit and stuff like that, every re-entry, you'll see everything's kind of stable for now, but as soon as you start to get into the thicker parts of the atmosphere, as we do now, all control, and then if you look at the G right above the purple velocity indicator, the G's, we're pulling 30 G's right now, everything's shaking and going crazy, and oh golly, you can see the controllers in the bottom right all going left, right, up, down, everything's going full deflection like crazy, but we get through and we kind of sort of settle into the belly flop. And if you actually look at our altitude, if you talk about quirks and features, I mean, the altitude is currently negative. So, this was definitely a little bit of a strange experience the first time I experienced it. So the collisions, I believe what's happening here is the collisions aren't quite set up this far out from the launch pad. So we're kind of just falling forever. It doesn't feel like you're falling, though. It feels like we're falling and getting closer, but I don't think we're actually getting closer to anything, because I let it fall for like a solid 10 minutes, and we didn't really get anywhere. It kind of felt like Inception or like a dream, right? You're just kind of going and going and going, and you're not very dream-like, you know? I feel like the Bwom Bwom music is going to start to play, and we're going to get run over by a train or something. You get the reference. You've seen the movie. So I figured I'd just demonstrate an actual a ship landing, just to show you that you can do it. It is a possible thing you can do, because obviously we weren't going to make it we weren't going to be able to do a ship landing in weird dream world we were just in a minute ago. So here we are lighting our engines, and we're doing our flip maneuver, and we are throttling down and getting ready to drop down to 2 engines for our final landing burn. Another weird thing is because like we can only kind of go left, right. There's no keybind set up in this game yet, so controlling, especially these fine movements, there are kind of buttons that help. Like there's a point straight down button, point retrograde button, but these kind of like very fine, subtle movements can get very, very difficult in here. And there's gonna be a crossfade because I've spent literally like 45 seconds like hovering around, and this is pretty much the best I could do, and we still unfortunately do flop on over. But I think that is a good place to wrap up the video. That was a fairly abbreviated, very fast-paced overview of StarbaseSim. So, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Please rate or comment to this video. And once again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. And bye.